My name is Michelle. I'm 21 years old and I have a story that's it's gonna shock you and might even give you nightmares or terrifying. This is a story that's affected me for over a long time, for almost about a decade or 10 years or so. I sometimes even after this I had some nightmares. And I will give you a brief backstory. I used to live with my younger sister Gina and our parents in a cul-de-sac until we found out that we were moving to another neighborhood in the same town after that my dad had got promoted and that we actually had now a bigger income so that we could be buying a bigger house. So we did. And we moved to this bigger up to this neighborhood and I was surprised that it wasn't even another cul-de-sac. It was an open street and it was like what 10 houses on both sides. And I was quite excited because I had my own room for once as well. And it was a big room. And shortly after we moved in, we were actually introduced ourselves to our next door neighbor to the right of us, the Tyler family. The family consists of Mr. and Mrs. Tyler and their oldest son, and their only son, Adam. Adam was like 1 year older than me. I was about 8 years old when we moved in. I was really happy to move to this new neighborhood. There were tons of other kids in the neighborhood as well. Me and my younger sister actually made quickly friends with all of them. And sometimes we were just playing outside just me and my sister in a front yard. Well, we never barely saw even Adam at all. When we did see him, he probably just looked at us and then just walked in. I didn't know what exactly that why. And one day when I was just playing with some of the neighbor kids, we suggested to play hide and seek, and I asked if we should invite Adam to play with us. The more kids, the better, I thought. But one of the kids said no immediately because Adam was not allowed to play with any of them. I asked why. I mean, he seems to be a nice kid. I mean, he's just what, only 8 or 9 at the time, but the reason why, because Adam was, in their words, weird and dangerous. I was like, dangerous? One of the kids told me the reason why they stopped playing with Adam entirely. And there's also the reason why they never invite him to play with them ever again. One day when they were playing tag, but this was just before I actually moved in this our new house. Adam was the one who's gonna be chasing around, and first he just tagged the people that he caught, but one particular in one of the boys that he caught, he almost tackled him to the ground and pinned him down. And some of the kids told him to just get off the kid immediately, but Adam ignored and said, "I don't have to listen to you." And he started just like punching the kid in the face. And some of the kids tried to drag Adam off, but then he punched the other kids in the face. So one of the parents came out to hear the commotion. When Adam saw that, he just get up and took off, ran home. And that is the reason why they never include Adam in any of the games or any of the birthday parties. They even told me to stay away from Adam because of this. I was confused. And over dinner, when the same day that happened, I did mention this to my parents that they at first didn't even believe me because to them, Adam seems a very, very polite, very, very just outgoing and energetic kid. And just a boy. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Why would he just target just one of the boys and then suddenly punch him in the face? One of the parents showed up and he just took off. Even though to this day I was really weirded out. I mean, who can anyone even honestly believe that Adam, a boy is like what, 8 or 9, could have been a psychopath? No one did even believe that. Because I actually never brought up to his parents when I met them. I mean, to them, I mean, for me, his parents seems to be a very genuine, very friendly, outgoing. But when Ada was around, he was always shy and one day he asked me if I want to play house with me, live with him. I was like, that was the first time Adam actually even approached me at during its time when I actually met when we had moved in. And since I actually had one of those big toy house at the backyard, which me and my younger sister sometimes did play in, and I was like, why not? I mean, I often play house with my sister, so I mean, there's nothing like wrong with that. So Adam and I did, and one day he actually asked if we should either we get married. I mean, when you play house, usually you had other players, husband and wife. So I said yes, why not? So we actually pretended to have a small wedding in my backyard, and I wore this nice white dress or something like that, and he actually put a ring on my fingers and on his own. And he told me never to take it off, no matter what, because now we are married. I thought he was just playing around, so I just okay, told him and said yes. And from that day on, it happened that when I ran into him, he saw that I still had the ring, or I didn't have the ring on me. He got mad, demanded to know why I didn't have the ring, and I told him I had the ring, but just had it in my pocket at the time because I didn't want to lose it. And he still told me, then it happened that sometimes he grabbed the ring and put it back on my finger and told me, you never do that again, because you don't want to make me mad, he told me, almost screaming in my face. For the first time, I actually got scared from Adam. And from that moment, I decided to stay away from him because there was something about him that I couldn't even put it there, even as an 8-year-old kid. And I started avoiding him every single time when I did see him. Even despite we went to separate schools, which to me today is something I'm really proud of actually happened. But when I actually got home, he was home already waiting for me, and when he saw me, I just turned around and just walked home, but he called over to me to come over, but I just ignored him, and then he screamed, "You belong to me, Michelle," he screamed, and that made me feared, and just ran in, locked the door. I never told this to anyone, not even my younger sister, because she was only a few years younger than me, and she wouldn't even understand what was the reason. But even somehow she was terrified of Adam as well. But I should have told my parents about this. But at the same time, they would probably just brush it off and believe that Peter or that Adam was just playing around. But over the next few years, Adam started acting a little bit more weirder than usual. Because I made my best attempts to avoid him when I get home or when I'm at home. If I was out playing with my sister in the front yard, he would when I heard the door and saw him, I told my sister that we should just go inside and play into something else. So he did. When he saw me doing that every single time, he gets so mad. He then one day just walked up to the house and banged on the door, demanded I get out to talk to him. This was like when I was just maybe as 10. And he was like, what, 11? And he started and told me that why I'm avoiding him, why I'm avoiding her own husband. My husband, I thought. I told him we were just playing house 2 years ago. We just played. There was nothing real about it. That made him so furious and red in his face. It's like, we are actually married for real. But then I told him we didn't even had a priest. We weren't even in a church. And even back then, I believed that every single wedding was supposed to be taking place in a church. But nowadays, I know for sure that doesn't have to. And I was right. There were no priests. So that was not even an actual wedding. So I always believed that. I told them I don't even have the ring anymore. I actually threw it away. And that made him even more furious. Before he even could do anything, he screamed that I should go home with him and stay there permanently. But I was afraid. But then, thanks for my happiness of my mom was home, and she heard this commotion. She told Adam, just calm down and just telling her what's happening. But he just screamed at her and said, "She belongs to me." She was confused. She had no idea what this was about. So I just slammed the door in his face and locked the door, and he started banging, kicking. I told him to leave me alone, you weirdo. That made him even more furious, but my mom for once told him, "Leave our property, Adam. Go home now, or I call your parents." Somehow that worked, and he just ran off. And for once, my mom asked me what in the world just happened and what that was about. So I told her everything. I mean, everything from what happened for the past 2 years and why I have much avoided Adam from us at all. She believed me because that was nothing as abnormal behavior from Adam at all. And when my dad came home, we told him. But at first he didn't believe me. But when he saw my mom's face that she was actually a bit scared of her own daughter, my safety, because Anna was just 1 year older than me, and we didn't know exactly what's going on here or what to expect. So my dad walked over to his parents' home, talked to them, and Mr. Tyler told my dad that he will make sure to always make sure that Adam is not near me or my sister again. So for the next several weeks after this particular event, we didn't barely saw Adam at all much. Adam was, well, when he was home, he was grounded for this. But in the past, that summer itself, I was found out that Adam was not home for several weeks. Turns out that he has been sent over to his grandparents in a different state away from us to spend time with them, so that for once, for several weeks, I had a peace. But one day when I get home, just a few days before school starts to start, Adam was sitting outside my door waiting for me, and I was getting home from the store with my mom and my sister, and when she saw him, she told him to not come over to our house anymore, but he ignored her and said, "Michelle, I have a new ring for you, and we should get married for real this time." I was laughing. It's like, "Adam, I would never even want to do that. That was just a play, a game, and I don't even play house anymore. I'm old for that now." And that made me furious. "You made a promise that you and I should be married forever," he said. "Adam, leave our house, our property right now, or I will call your mom right now," my mom said, and had her phone out. But Adam just ignored her, and my sister, she was scared. She started crying, and he then reacted, "Be quiet, you cry baby," screaming at her. And he stood up and just walked over to her and pushed her so that she fell with her head backwards to the car hard. My mom was terrified. She then told Adam, "You leave right now." And then he grabbed my arm and tried to pull me, drag me to his house. But then my mom was screaming, "Leave her alone!" And somehow Mr. Tyler was actually home, and he heard this commotion and ran out of the house and "Adam, leave her alone." That terrified Adam enough and let me go and ran out of the house. Mr. Tyler apologized to me and told my parents, my mom afterwards, that if she wanted to press charges against Adam, he would not hesitate to actually agree on that. Because this is getting too far. Mr. and Mrs. Tyler was complete opposite from their son. They were actually very friendly, and I could almost see them as almost like my kind of a next door neighbor grandparents or something, because I loved them. They were friendly people, especially during the Halloween. They always gave us a lot of candy, or when the Christmas times when they give always me, my sister, and always a small gift. They were they were known almost like the grandparents or slash parents of the neighborhood. But Adam, he was the complete opposite. Adam was grounded once again, but this time for months. And I didn't see it for that time, which gladly though gave me peace. But since sometimes when I get home from school, I could see him standing either from his bedroom window or in the living room window, staring at me with dagger eyes, like almost I'm gonna kill you kind of look. But I just ignored it. But after that months passed, when he was allowed to get outside again, my parents told me stay away from Adam, and I did. But when I was even playing with some of the neighborhood kids, he just walked up to me and said, "You, me, church, right now." I laughed at him and said, "Adam, get your weird face away from me." And some of the neighborhood kids actually stood in front of me to block him off and telling him, "Back off. She doesn't want to talk to you. You are a complete psycho weirdo," they told them, all screaming. Then he started screaming back at him. Then he did something that I really didn't believe. He pulled out a pocket knife or some small blade and threatened to kill one of those kids if they didn't let me go with him. But they refused, and even believed that he would even do anything. But Adam took this step way too far. He actually stabbed one of the kids in the stomach, but turned out the blade wasn't even that big enough, so it was just a small scar. But the kids, terrified, screamed, and parents came out from their houses. Adam, well, he ran off, not home, but he ran off to somewhere, but the police was called, and they found him, questioned him about this, and he was just still 12 years old at the time. I was terrified. And he repeated the same thing. He was sentenced to a place where he could get some mental help or something. But he came home only shortly afterwards. For at least for a while after that, Adam personally stayed away from me for I can't say exactly how long, but it was quite some time actually. And honestly though, I was pretty much happy. But one day, this is not from my perspective, this was from my younger sister. This happened when she was she was home alone for only about a few hours. I believe at the time, was with my mom to a store, and she was, scared for some reason. You may understand why. Because at the time, my sister was just only 11 and I was 14 and Adam was 15 at the time. He started to screaming, banging, scratching and slamming himself against the door, telling her to let him in so he could see her, because he just thought that I was at home alone with her and that she was holding me hostage. Adam was told by my sister Gina, even from the door, screaming in terror, that I wasn't at home, but he didn't believe me. But luckily for the door was so reinforced that he couldn't even smash it down. But then she thought of the back door. She ran back door and he followed it the same thing. But the back door was locked and also had been reinforced, so he couldn't smash that in. Then he smashed one of the living room's windows and started trying to climb in. She actually took her phone and ran out the front door out to the street and called for 911. And when we actually get home, we saw at least 2 police cars, and Adam was one of the cars, handcuffed. His parents was also there, talking to the officers, and my sister. My mom was so terrified. Turns out that Adam had planned to take me away from the house because they believed that I was holding hostage because I didn't want to be with him because they were there. Turned out in his mind, my parents was the one making the choice that I should stay away from him. But honestly, it wasn't even anywhere near that. And the police officers asked me if I want to press charges against him. And even though it wasn't me, but I did. And Gina told the same thing, and my parents did the same thing. I put for request for a restraining order against Adam. I was granted. Adam was sent to juvenile hall for about almost 2 years. But when he get out, he broke the restraining order, and I tried to break into my room, and he succeeded. And he almost attacked me. But what he didn't expect, though, my dad was home, and he had a shotgun. Adam was terrified, and he froze when he saw the look of the shotgun pointed in his face. The police was called, and this time he was arrested for attempted burglary and attacking. And well, let's say he was assaulted. He was put in jail this time, and he was sentenced for, I don't even remember, but it was quite a long time. So even now, when I'm 21, Adam is still in jail for a long time more, because he actually attacked a number of, I think was on 5 or 6 other inmates, and managed to kill 2 of them, and that gave them a life sentence for both. So, Adam, I'm glad that I will never be in to see you or ever again. Just you give me a lasting nightmare scars for months or even years afterwards. But me and my sister, we have moved on, and we are lucky to never be encountered you ever again. So, Adam, you belong where you belong. Thank you everyone for listening to the story. It's a good time. Thank you.